The heart, according to cardiocentric hypothesis, has a profound influence on human emotions, cognition, and awareness. This belief may be traced back to ancient civilizations such as that of Egypt and Greece, where the heart was regarded not only as a physical organ, but also as a vessel of emotions and wisdom. Now to the human body. The heart is a muscular vital organ which pumps blood throughout the body, supplying oxygen and nutrients to tissues and other organs. On this episode of Frontiers, we shall take a look at how stress affects cardiovascular health. I am Frama Panyi. Our guest is Dr. Murtala Ngabea, Consultant Interventional Cardiologist and Federal Capital Territory Coordinator on Nigeria Hypertension Society. Glad to have you join us on the program.
Thank you for having me.
We shall be back in a moment.
The heart is a muscle which pumps blood to all parts of the body. The blood pumped by the heart provides oxygen and the nutrients the body needs to function. The heart is about the size of a clenched fist and weighs between 300 and 450 grams. It lies in the middle of the chest, behind and slightly to the left of the breastbone. The heart is important to the body as it helps in controlling the rhythm and speed rates, as well as help maintain blood pressure. Proper care of the heart keeps it free from diseases, heart attack, and cardiac arrest. One which happens when blood flow to the heart is blocked, and the other causes the heart to suddenly stop beating, leading to death in most cases. Eating healthy foods, physical activity, healthy weight, avoiding smoking and secondhand smoke, cholesterol control and blood pressure, moderate alcohol intake, and stress management are sure ways to keep the heart healthy so it functions optimally.
Welcome on Frontiers.
Nice to be here, Frama. Yeah.
Thank you. Doctor, let's get straight into the business of the day now. It's very common to hear people talk about being stressed. We hear a lot of people say, I'm stressed, I feel I'm stressed, What really is stress in medical terms?
To be stressed, I think generally, medically or otherwise, is almost similar. Not in the Nigerian slogan anyway. Stress medically means a state of physical or emotional frustration. Okay? A state of being overwhelmed, continuously overwhelmed by either anger, depression, or anxiety. Okay? A stress, a condition of tension, physical or emotional tension. That's what it means by stress. And I will have to add here immediately that it can either be acute or that's short-term or long-term, continuous, or what we call chronic. So it can either have positive effects or negative effects. Most times, an acute pressure or tension is good for one to prepare himself or brace up for an immediate action. But when it becomes persistent, it becomes continuous, then it becomes what we call chronic stress. And that is the one that majority of the time has negative health implications.
Okay.
Yeah.
Right now, at your health facility where you work, you attend to patients on a daily basis. What are the common stressors you find?
Quite a number of conditions can cause chronic stress. Work-related
Okay.
stress, adverse family conditions, and financial downturn usually are what comes up on top of stressors. But sometimes it interests you to know that even things that ordinarily should be positive, that you think is positive, can have stressful effects on people, like preparing for marriage, getting a newborn into the family. And of course, you agree with me that generally bereavement or losing a dear one, a loved one, it's also a very common stressor. But sometimes, for some people, even winning the lottery can come with its own stress. So generally, these are the things that negative or poor working environment and family environment that is not conducive. Okay, most of the times misunderstanding with a spouse or children are those things that commonly, and then of course bankruptcy and negative financial condition are things that generally lead to what? Stress.
Right. Now, what are some early signs of stress-related cardiovascular diseases?
Like I told you earlier on, can be physical. Generally, people tend to have tendency of persistent headache, lack of sleep, or waking up in the middle of the night and not being able to go back to sleep again. General feeling of being tired, easily getting tired, can also be a sign of what? Stress. But looking at the heart or cardiovascular system generally, feeling of what? Chest pain or having heaviness in the chest or in the heart region, it's a common presentation of what? Stress. Abnormal feeling of abnormal heartbeat, or what we refer medically as palpitation, can also be what? A common presentation of what? Stress. And then people developing high blood pressure. Okay? And of course, related to this, people can then develop heart attack as what? A presentation of what? Stress. So it's a spiral, it's a continuous. One thing usually leads to another, and then another, and then another. Some people can also start to smoke if they're stressed up. They don't smoke before, but they can start smoking as a manifestation of stress. And then, of course, we know that smoking is also a very, it has multiple negative effects on cardiovascular health. So some people will start smoking. Some people will just can even overeat. They'll just overeat. They'll eat 2-3 times, or they eat multiple times as a result of stress. And then within a few days to few weeks, they will start adding weight. These all also have what? Multiplier effects on the heart or cardiovascular health. And then many people too, when they're stressed up, they tend to what? Just lie down and not do anything.
So now, can you share with us what is the relationship between stress and cardiovascular disease?
Relationship between stress and cardiovascular disease. Multiple. First of all, there's people tend to what? Develop hypertension if they are not previously hypertensive. So they develop hypertension, or those that are previously have high blood pressure tend to have what? Their blood pressure going up further, so not getting controlled. And again, don't forget that people have tendency of not taking their medications when they are stressed up. So they already have a background. That's those that have background heart diseases before or high blood pressure will always almost not take their medication. So further worsening their precarious situation, and then increase in blood pressure, and then increase in the heartbeat, or what we call arrhythmias, can what? Predispose to heart attack. Okay? I told you earlier on that some people also tend to smoke as a reaction to stress. So all these have effect. And then when you look at it, when you look at the body systems, there is what is called, there is a way stress also affects the blood vessels. It tends to what? Induce some kind of changes in the blood vessels of the body, further predisposing them to heart attack. Because there is what we call inflammation. It's kind of the effect, what we see within the blood vessels that can predispose them to what, or to an individual that is stressed up having what? Heart attack. So, and then that has been established. Research has shown that yes, people tend to have tendency because the vessels are not usually relaxed. So the vessels themselves, just like the individual is tensed up, his blood vessels are also tensed up, they are narrowed. So these all predispose to what? Heart attack. Okay? Increase in blood pressure, increase in heart rate, predisposition to what? Heart attack. And of course, you know that, and stroke too. Because the same mechanism that causes heart attack can also cause stroke.
Doctor, can you share with us some healthy habits or some ways we can, adopt to help control stress?
Yeah. In other words, you are talking about preventive measures, that we can adopt. Simple things. Simple step-by-step things. Just chilling, like friends will say. Chill, generally, okay? Mingling with friends, lively friends. It's a very simple thing to do. That's, keeping positive company, meeting all-time friends, and relaxing. It has its own way of, reducing tension because, of course, lack of supportive. I told you earlier on, some of the causes are strenuous work environment. So by the time one meets, hangs out with friends, but not smoking, or of course, definitely not friends that you smoke and drink, but, relaxing. So that's one, it has way of what? Bringing down stress level. And then what we say, adopting a positive attitude. Like people will say, count your blessings. Looking at life from the silver lining perspective. Okay, yes, of course, things are hard in Nigeria generally, we all know. Our salary cannot buy anything, but you look at it in a different way. When one looks at things in a positive attitude perspective, it has a way of, like, okay, for example, you ask yourself, what are people that don't even work at all, people that don't even earn salary at all? Because if you look at your salary in such a way that it cannot buy you anything, but then you say, thank God I even earn at all. That's positive attitudes. Okay? That's looking at the silver lining of things. Has a way of reducing stress. Then, of course, physical activity, exercise, very important. Okay? We recommend 30 minutes to 1 hour of walk, little jogging. Minimum, we talk about 3 times a week, 30 minutes to 1 hour of what? Exercise, or skipping, or cycling. These are what we call aerobic exercises. Not going to the gym to go and carry weightlifting. That's not an aerobic exercise, definitely. And then facilitating relaxation activities. Okay, some people talk about yoga. Other people talk about meditation, just lying down, meditating, or sing, listening to good music. Yes, of course, sing. Those that can sing, but those that have hoarse voice like mine can just listen, okay, to music, or recite the scriptures. Right? Recite the scriptures. All have what? Positive effects. I've talked about exercise. I've talked about avoiding stressors. Okay, if it's so bad, change. If the working environment is overwhelming, people can take leave, of course, when on leave, changing schedules, all what contributes. And then, of course, avoiding debt as much as possible, so that the debtor will not come knocking of course, we know that the environment, the situation is already tensed up, and also avoiding financial, indebtedness, and many other things that can stress out that we mentioned earlier on. Keeping good relationships, spousal relationship, are all things that has been established, has been shown, to reduce, effect of stress generally on people's head, and then specifically on the cardiovascular health.
Dr. Mutala, we'll pause here, take a short break. We shall be back in a moment. Welcome back. Now, let's pick up where we left before we went on break. Doctor, how does stress increase the risk of hypertension, diabetes, and other chronic diseases? Can you just highlight on this?
Okay, yeah. That is, we're trying to look at what in medical terms we call mechanisms, or ways. If you look at it, there are some certain chemicals in the body. When you look at the body system, there's some certain chemicals that we call hormones, okay, that stress tend to increase them. Their level in the blood tend to increase in circulation. We have what we call cortisol, we have what we call adrenaline. I'm sure you must have heard about adrenaline. Ordinarily, these are things that tend to make us active, make us more active, help our work, right? If there's a surge of adrenaline, if you're faced with an anxious moment and there's a surge of adrenaline, or you have a schedule that you want to meet, you have a program that you want to present, you need a little bit of a surge of adrenaline to be able to function effectively. So within some few minutes to 1 hour maximum. But when these things are persistent, so they have what we call negative effect. I told you earlier on, they're the one that make the heart to beat more. They're the one that lead to inflammation in the blood vessels. They make our blood vessels stiff, and then they now contribute to, in the long time, when it becomes weak, when it becomes persistent, contribute in raising our blood pressure, contribute in raising our blood sugar. They are actually what we call anti-insulin hormones. You will know that insulin is the hormone that controls our sugar. So they tend to reduce the effect of insulin. They work against insulin, and so they also cortisol and adrenaline. They also have a way of raising our blood sugar continuously. And then, of course, you know that these are risk factors for developing diabetes, developing high blood pressure. In the long term, they also cause heart attack, stroke, and all the negative effects. And usually, they have tendency of, the way some of these things happen is that they have tendency of happen at a particular time of the day. They tend to occur in the early mornings. Their level in the system is higher, especially if one is awake at that point in time, around 4 a.m. Their level will tend to increase at that point in time, especially if one is not sleeping. So that's why, and unfortunately, I told you earlier on that people that stress up don't sleep. So that is an additional effect that stress can induce. One, they are not sleeping. And so the body system, instead of it to relax at the most critical time, so it now worsens. So you see somebody that sleeps or goes to bed, I won't say sleep, goes to bed in the night, supposedly to have relaxed, waking up with stroke. Because most events, or what we call events, that's cardiovascular damages, occur in the early morning. People just wake up and then they are discovered to have had a stroke
Oh.
overnight because of this explanation that I've told you. Spiral effects of all the factors that we've listed coming into play. And so in those days, even now, what would they say? Village people have come over the night and have hit him in the night. No, they all have their own physiological explanations, like I just told you.
Yeah. You've mentioned some of these stressors, and it's almost as if we cannot avoid stress because your mode of work, family, and all that. So share with us, how prevalent is stress-related cardiovascular disease in Nigeria?
Well, we don't want to agree with you that we cannot avoid. We can avoid, of course.
Okay.
Like I told you earlier on, you know, run away. We've tried to identify the stressors. So in as much as possible, run away. Of course, you can't run away. You have the willpower to run away, to try to reduce them. Deliberate effort. So we can indeed reduce them to what the barest minimum. Okay. Yeah. Currently, it's been said that about 22%, almost 25% of adult Nigerians have what? High blood pressure. The population of Nigeria is about 220 million. If the adult population is about 140 to 150 million, we are talking about approximately 40-50 million people living with what? High blood pressure. So you're talking about an average of 5 to 7 million people living with hypertension. Okay, so and then of course almost 40% or 1/3 of these people I just mentioned would have will have stress or negative stressors. So you agree with me that it's quite a rampant or a significant proportion of people have to deal with one or two of these issues that we are discussing about right now. So that's why we always grasp these opportunities like this to do advocacy and educate people to, like I always say, like I said earlier on, chill, adopt positive attitudes. Most times it has a way of reducing the stressors to the barest minimum.
No, so much, Dr. Murtala, for sharing with us and educating us on some of these risk factors and telling us more about stress. We really appreciate you.
It's been my pleasure.
Thank you. The focus on today's episode of Frontiers has been stress and its effects on cardiovascular health, and Dr. Ngabea Murtala, consultant interventional cardiologist and Federal Capital Territory Coordinator, Nigeria Hypertension Society, was our guest. Thank you for your time.